Hey friends, it's Shereé, and in today's video, I'm going to be collaborating with Talisha of Creativity by T. But first, if you're new to my channel, welcome, and if you're a returning person, thank you so much for your continued support. All right, let's get into it. For today's video, Talisha and I have decided that we are going to be bringing you the perfect two-piece outfits. Now, we decided to use the same fabric, so we will both be using 100% cotton brushed fabric. It is absolutely gorgeous and it is very affordable. If you are a person like myself who is allergic to wool and has been wanting to purchase the perfect blazer but had trouble finding one that wasn't wool, I want you to consider using this fabric because it turned out wonderful and I love the results of the garments that I made. Now for this collaboration, we are both sewing blazers. We are sewing two different blazers, so you will get two different pattern reviews on blazers, which we hope that you enjoy. Now Talisha will be pairing her blazer with a different garment. I have chosen to pair mine with a pair of trousers. So in this video, you'll be getting two different pattern reviews, one for the blazer and one for the trousers. However, so that this video isn't super long, I'm going to be giving a more detailed pattern review for the blazer, but you will get some details about the trousers that I created. The pattern that I selected for my blazer is Simplicity S9825, and I will put an image on the screen so that you can see what that looks like close up. Now the description for this pattern is a double-breasted lined jacket with shoulder pads and optional contrast lapel and front patch pockets with flaps. I chose to do view A, which is using all the same fabric, no contrast. This is rated as average, and because I wasn't sure about what Simplicity considers to be average, I did look up their definition of average, and on their website it says it's perfect if you have more time to sew and more experience sewing. If you're looking for challenging designer techniques, tailoring, unique construction details, more inner construction. I definitely agree with all of that, especially as it pertains to this garment because it is time consuming. It does take quite a while to make this, and there are some really nice finishes and tailoring techniques that you do with constructing a lined blazer that I think definitely sets it above a easy pattern. So this particular pattern has 15 pattern pieces, and that includes the lining pieces as well. And I have to tell you, when I initially cut out this pattern, I was very overwhelmed. For one, I chose to use a fabric that has plaid. And with plaids, you have to do plaid matching. And so it was definitely quite a science laying out my fabric on the ground and lining up all of the pieces so that they line up perfectly. And in some cases, as I constructed my blazer, I did find that my plaids didn't match, even after the hours I spent cutting out the fabric and taking my time. So definitely this is a project that will consume more time because of cutting out all those 15 pieces. And then if you're going to be using any type of fabric that has a print, you're going to have to be mindful of matching your prints. So definitely more time consuming. The size range on this pattern is size 8 to size 26. And a size 8 is a 31.5 bust, a 24 waist, and a 33.5 hip. A size 26 has a 48 bust, a 41.5 inch waist, and a 50 inch hip. I chose to sew up the size 16. The bust is a 38, the waist is a 30, and the hip is a 40. I made view A, which meant that I needed 2 7/8 yards of fabric to complete the blazer. Now the lining, you need a little bit less, and that I used 2 1/8 yards of lining fabric. I would say that the instructions for this pattern were pretty easy to follow. They were definitely very detailed, and I felt like I had my hand held as I went through the process of sewing up this pattern. But there was one section in the instructions that I did not understand, and that is simply because what my garment looked like didn't match the picture illustration. But I would say that these instructions are really well written, and for someone who's never sewn a lined blazer before, I would say that I did not have a hard time understanding what I should do with most of the steps in the instructions. The instructions for this pattern are very detailed, and I would say, as someone who's never sewn a lined blazer before, I feel like I did a really good job, and it is all thanks to following the instructions step by step. I also want to make mention that while sewing up this blazer, I was very sick, and so I was moving slow. I had foggy brain because I just had such a bad head cold, and so I was really taking my time, and I would say that there was only one spot in the whole construction process where I struggled with the instructions, and that was steps 29 and 30, where they talk you through how to attach the sleeve lining to the hem of the outer sleeve pieces. And for whatever reason, I just could not wrap my head around those instructions. And part of the issue that I had is that my sleeves did not look like the illustration sleeves. So even though I reread those instructions over and over again and tried not to focus so much on what the illustration looked like, just listen or follow the instructions, the written instructions, I still struggled. And so eventually I just had to figure it out on my own. And because I'm not new to sewing, I was able to work my way through it, and it looks beautiful and nice. And you would never know by looking at the inside of the sleeve that I struggled there. But I'm telling you, because for some reason either I messed up, or maybe it's the illustration that's not perfect. But because I was sick when I constructed the blazer, I do want to put that disclaimer out there that maybe you won't struggle when you get to steps 29 and 30, but it was a very small, minor detail that I struggled with. And other than that, the instructions were written really well, and I was able to construct a beautiful blazer following those instructions. In order to complete this blazer, it did take me an entire day. And when I say entire day, I really do mean after breakfast until after dinner. It was a whole day. And as I mentioned before, I was sick. And also I want to point out that the majority of the pattern pieces for the outer shell of your blazer are interfaced. So it does take time to iron all that interfacing onto all the pieces. And while I cut the fabric on a different day, still applying the interfacing on the same day that I plan to sew my blazer did eat up some time. I also had to take a couple of short breaks to eat and to take care of myself because I was sick. There was a huge push for me to get this done though, because I did want to wear this on Thanksgiving, and I did end up wearing it on Thanksgiving. But even if I hadn't been sick, I would have taken my time, and this would have been a more lengthy project than some of the other projects that I've shared on my channel before. It's partly due to the fact that this blazer is lined, because you have to basically sew all of the pieces for the outer shell and then turn around and sew up all those same pieces as a lining and then attach the two together. So there are more pieces to the pattern, making it a little bit longer, but also there's some details and tailoring that will also eat up some time. I also found some challenges that I created on my own. Not any fault of the pattern designer at all. It was just things that I did that also set me back in time. So some of the issues that I had, besides my sleeve not coming together exactly the way the instructions told me to, with attaching the lining to the main outer sleeve, is that I used a brushed cotton that had a bit of stretch to it. So once I applied my interfacing and I pressed them, for some reason my pieces stretched a bit. So when I started sewing all my pieces together, there were certain areas, and I can point them out. They're not major, to be honest with you, but they are noticeable to me. But if you look here on the side seam, you can tell that they are slightly off, and it's very tiny skosh of where the plaids are off on the sides under the arm. But as you can see, it's probably more noticeable here that it's slightly off. And that was very frustrating because I had spent so much time being careful cutting out my pieces to ensure that everything lined up. So that was one issue that I had. And actually you can probably tell too towards the bottom of the blazer. I'm going to lift it a little bit so hopefully you can see that. The plaids are close to matching at the bottom. Can you see that? Yeah. Close to matching at the bottom, but a skosh off. So that it's a minor thing. Now, if you bought a blazer in a department store, it probably would not look like that. And so for me, I felt a little frustrated with myself because I really wanted this to be a perfect blazer that would remove my desire to want to purchase a blazer. And I will be inserting some inspiration photos of how I selected my pieces and what look I was actually trying to achieve. And so you'll be able to see where my head was at. And I did in a previous video share a picture of a blazer that I had stopped myself from buying from Nordstrom's because it was over like $300. And I got all the fabric that I used for this outfit for like $24 or something crazy like that. I shared that in a previous video. And so anyway, I wanted it to be perfect, just like a department store version. So that was a little frustrating, but I have to say it's such a minor thing, and considering how much love and hard work went into this blazer, at the end of the day it doesn't bother me that much, and I've still been wearing this blazer a lot, and so it's not a huge deal to me. Another issue that I had with the blazer is that since when I pressed the pattern pieces and attached the interfacing, the cotton fabric stretched, the front and back pieces of the blazer no longer lined up because one was longer than the other. So I ended up having to shorten the blazer pieces in order for them to be the same length on the front and the back. And in doing that, I actually lost the space that goes underneath the blazer pocket. And I'll show you what that looks like on the actual pattern itself. If you look closely, there is a bit of space at the bottom of the pocket. So it's about probably 2 inches underneath the pocket between the bottom of the pocket and the hem of the jacket. And since I had to shorten my blazer in order to make it even on the bottom, I lost that additional fabric. So my pocket lines up with the bottom hem of the jacket. And so that was something that I did not anticipate. And it is something that will probably look different from a ready-to-wear blazer, but it's still a very clean finish and it still looks very nice. It looks intentional, but it was not. Another thing is, when I had initially cut out my pockets, I decided that I did not want the pockets to match the plaids of the front jacket pieces because I was afraid that the pockets would get lost in the print of the blazer. And so I did not match my plaids for that. As you can see, the pocket placement, it does not match up perfectly with the plaids on the jacket. And it was a good idea in theory, but once I lost that couple inches at the bottom of the blazer, it made it look as though my plaids don't match up at all from the front to the back. And actually they're just a skosh off. So it's kind of a bummer. So it's like if you were a seamstress, right away you would look at the jacket and say, oh, her plaid matching is off, because it's more obvious since there isn't the bottom of the blazer here to show you that it matches up on the bottom, above and below the pocket. So anyways, it's a minor thing. It's not a big deal, but it is something that but it is an issue that I encountered. There is one final challenge that I found with this blazer, and I don't know if it is because I missed a step in the instructions or if it is just not the way this blazer is designed. However, in previous jackets that I've completed in the past, there is usually a step where you attach the top part of the collar to the under collar so that it is structured and doesn't separate or move around. But with this pattern, it is basically open. If you can see that, like, this is the inside of the jacket and the inside of the collar. This is the outside of the jacket and the outside of the collar. There's no stitching to basically tack this down through the front and the back pieces of the collar in order to make it more structured. So, I mean, it's not a big deal if you're wearing it properly like this and you have your collar down. However, if you wanted to pop your collar, I don't know how that would work. And it just feels a little bit soft and flimsy rather than structured and in place. When I'm wearing it, you can't tell. I don't ever plan to pop my collar, but it was just this thing that I found to be very interesting. But this is my blazer. I'm very happy with the way it came out, and I'll give you a close-up of the beautiful buttons. These are leather buttons that I got from Joann. I have a regret about putting one on the inside though. I wish I had went ahead and put just a basic clear button, because I do find that when buttoning this blazer on the inside, it's a bit fiddly, but it's not a big deal. And also it's such a beautiful button. I almost feel bad wasting it on the inside of the garment when you won't actually see it. So part of me thinks I might at some point go in, remove that button, and add a basic plain either clear button or brown button. But this is my gorgeous blazer. This is what it looks like on the inside. The lining gives such a beautiful finishing touch to this blazer. And these are the sleeves to the blazer. As you can see, I have more of those leather covered buttons, and these are a smaller version compared to the larger versions on the front of the blazer. There's one more style detail about this blazer that is different than what I had envisioned in my mind, and so if I make this blazer again, I will probably change this about this blazer. But in the instructions, it tells you to put a buttonhole on either side of the front pieces of the blazer. Let me put this back on the mannequin so it's easier to show you. So if you can look at the blazer here, there is a buttonhole on either side of the blazer. And I really feel as though one of these buttonholes should be only on the facing side of the fabric. I don't think that it looks as clean to have a buttonhole on either side of the outside of the blazer. And I was looking at my other blazers that I have in my closet that no longer fit. I'll be donating those, by the way. Anyway, and that's how it is with the ready-to-wear blazers that I have, is that there is only one exterior buttonhole. So I found that to be interesting. And also, when I look at the images on the outside of the pattern, they don't appear to have any buttonholes on the model's version, so I couldn't verify whether or not I was doing it correctly or not. And when you look at the line drawings on the back of the pattern, it doesn't show you the front of the blazer. So I wasn't able to verify if I had screwed something up, or if in fact I read the instructions correctly when it said to put a buttonhole on the outside of both sides of the blazer. Either way, it's not a big deal. It's beautiful. It looks intentional. It was intentional because I followed the instructions, but at the same time, I think for future versions, I will have the forethought to put the buttonhole only on the inside of the pocket rather than having it on the outside. I hope that makes sense. So I think that the blazer itself is a really beautiful blazer. It fits my body oversized, which is exactly what I wanted. It's perfect because I've been able to pair this with hoodies, with bulky sweaters, with blouses, with t-shirts. It's currently raining where I live, and the weather has not been perfect or ideal for filming outside, taking pictures, and all of that. So for the purpose of being able to create this video and get it out to you on time, I did just go ahead and insert some videos of me modeling the garment inside my home. Now, I don't wear shoes in my home, so please forgive my socked feet. But on Thanksgiving, I did pair this with a bodysuit that was white as a turtleneck bodysuit. And I also paired it with some brown Nike Dunks. And that was such a cute, perfect pairing. And that's pretty much how I plan to wear the outfit in the future, is casually with sneakers. So in the video, you'll be able to see me modeling the blazer, and you'll be able to see how it fits on my body with the oversized look. It does go perfectly over all types of different garments in my closet, so it's perfect for layering. And I like the way the shoulder pads give it a more boxy shape in the body. It's just really cool, and I'm very proud of myself for having completed such a nice garment. It is very soft and it is very warm. That was one of the concerns that I had, is with the cotton, since it's not a wool, I wondered, would it keep me warm? And it did. I wore this the entire weekend of Thanksgiving, and it was kind of brisk. And I did go on some walks with my sister. We walked her dogs. And I just threw this on top of whatever I was wearing, and I stayed nice and warm. So it's definitely a really nice piece of fabric. If you're interested in trying out this brushed cotton, this was purchased at Joann Fabric. I used a coupon and it was on sale. So I got a really good deal on this blazer. I highly recommend this blazer. I do think that it is a very nice, professionally finished looking garment. There are some things, like I mentioned before, that I will be tweaking in the future. One being attaching this collar piece to the lining back collar piece in order to make it more stabilized, but also the buttonholes in the front. I'll probably also make it in a solid colored fabric so that I don't have to worry about plaid matching. It would make the project just so much faster to complete. And I'm thinking of more of a basic color that would match everything in my closet, like a navy blue or a black. But I love the style of it, and I definitely feel comfortable and confident and cute while wearing it. And for me, that is always the goal. So I highly recommend this. It's a 10 out of 10, and I will sew it up again. Let's talk about the pants that I selected. The pants that I selected are the Viki Sews Daphna trousers, and this is what they look like. And I'm going to read the description of this pattern. The Daphna pants are loosely fitting, straight cut palazzo trousers with pressed crease lines on the front and back and at the waist. There are 2 soft pleats facing the center on each side of the front. The back features waist darts. There are functional pockets in the side seam pockets, and the trousers have applied waistband with belt loop. The upper edge of the waistband sits on the natural waistline, and Daphna fastens with a flat zipper as well as hook and bar closures. And these trousers are meant to be floor length. This pattern is drafted for someone that is 5'5", and I'm 5'4", so I thought it would be perfect. There were a couple of things about the pattern that I changed so that they would fit my needs, as well as the style inspiration that I found on Pinterest. And the first thing is that instead of pleating the pants towards the center front of the pants, I actually pleated out towards the outer leg. So to each his own. If you follow the instructions for these and do it this way, it will look perfect. I'm actually going to do that on my next version, but for this version I flipped the pleats to go the other direction. The other thing that I did is that instead of doing a bar closure on the waistband, a hook and bar closure, I chose to do a buttonhole and button, and that's how I decided I wanted to fasten my pants. I find that to be more comfortable, and also these were going to be my Thanksgiving pants, so I wanted to make sure that I wore them the way I wanted to wear them. So that's another thing that I changed. And even though these are drafted to be full floor length for someone who's 5'5", I found them to be really, really long. So I ended up taking a couple of inches off so that they would stop on my sneakers and not drag on the floor. I don't like my pants to touch the dirty floor. So, and I also wanted to be able to wear these in the house without shoes on. So I did shorten the length on these pants. Interesting enough, the pattern sizing on here did not meet my expectations. Okay, I thought I was making the perfect size and they ended up being very big, and I will insert a clip of me walking around in these pants so that you can see how big they are on my body. I chose to make the US 12, which is a 44, and that is a 31.5 waist, a 41 3/4 hip. Now this was really, really big, and the reason why I made that size is, for one, the waist is much smaller than what my waist is by a couple of inches, and also because I wanted them to be oversized. I think I just didn't anticipate how much they would be oversized. If I had gone down a size based off of the measurements on the instructions, it appeared as though it was going to be either too small or fitted too closely to the body. So I do regret making the size 12, and in my future version, I think I could almost stand to go down 2 sizes to a size 8. So that is something that I will change about this pattern in the future. One of the things that is kind of messed up is that when I cut out this pattern, I absolutely lost the belt loop pattern piece. So I had to draft something for myself in order to create the button loops for the pants. And so basically I cut out, I want to say the fabric was about 1.5 inches wide, and I cut out a piece of fabric long enough to where I could do, I think, how many button loops were there? 5. I had to cut out 5 button loops that were 3 inches long, and that was just me estimating, and it ended up working out nicely. But boy, oh boy, was I sweating when I realized I had thrown away or lost the button loop pattern piece. That was so frustrating. Now, one thing that I definitely want to do besides sizing down in the future is I definitely want to try pleating towards the front, and I will also do the hook and bar closure for my next version. However, I did find the pattern piece for the waistband to be extremely confusing. A lot of the markings on the pattern piece itself look identical, and I wasn't sure where to cut the waistband in order for it to be the right size, because the same dashed lines kept appearing further down on the waistband pattern piece. So I really didn't understand by looking at that pattern piece where I should cut in order for it to do this perfect overlapping. Now, it's not a big deal since I chose to do the buttonhole and button closure on these pants. I didn't actually have to worry about that. I just cut it. I just attached the waistband and then cut it to fit where I wanted it to fit, and that's how I dressed that. So this is what the waistband looks like, and I wore these pants around the house, so now they're not perfectly pressed, but I do want to mention, just so that you're not surprised or frustrated if you choose to make trousers out of this fabric, is that it does wrinkle easily. No sooner than I ironed the pants, put them on, did the little video where I walked around, I found, looking at the video back later, they were already wrinkled. So anyway, it's hard to see because I've even lost some of my pleating with the wrinkles, even though I literally only put these on to model for you in the video. They're not as prominent, and I did use Best Press when I pressed the pants, but they're soft and comfortable. It's not like a tacky wrinkling, it's just that those perfectly pressed lines that I had are now missing. So anyways, this is what the pants look like. I think they're stunning. I think they're very cute on. My plaids do not match on the butt, guys. So again, like I said, these are a wearable muslin, but I will wear these. These are definitely going to be something that I enjoy wearing, but for my next version, I will size down and make the additional changes to these pants. I used the same lining from my blazer as I did for the pockets, and I think that looks really nice, especially when paired together. So I'm really happy about that. And this lining fabric is actually a lining acetate fabric from Joann. I actually have purchased this a few times, and I really enjoy this fabric a lot. So this is what my pants look like, and again, I'll insert a video so that you can see me walking around in the pants, and then also you can see the two pieces together. Now, I will say that when I completed the outfit and I was trying it on, I was looking at myself in the mirror, I was really second guessing myself on whether or not I would want to wear these two pieces together because they're both oversized. I started to think that maybe I should only wear this with a fitted top or a sweatshirt tucked in with a belt without the blazer, or wear the blazer with something completely different as well. Like, I've paired this blazer with jeans and sweats and all kinds of stuff, and it looks good over a dress, all of that. But when it came to the pants, I really felt like an oversized blazer over oversized pants was a miss. But I wore it together and I got a lot of compliments, and it kind of boosted my self-esteem a bit and made me feel as though maybe I was wrong and it can be worn together. I even sent pictures of the outfit to ask Talisha, girl, what do you think? Is this too much or what? Because I wasn't sure how I felt about how oversized these pants were. A part of me wants to even purchase this fabric again so that I can make another pair with the adjustments that I mentioned that I'd like to make again when I make these again, just so that I can have a perfect pair of pants to pair with this blazer. And I may do that, but I'm not really pressed to do so because I know I'm going to wear these as is. But as you can see in the video, there's at least 3 inches in the waist that I could pull in the picture. So it's definitely too big, and I would love for it to fit me a little bit better. And I didn't insert labels in this guy, so all it is the serger thread. So in my next version, I definitely, for the blazer and for the pants, I'd love to insert some labels. But these pants were really straightforward. I did find in the instructions, there were some really nice finishing instructions or extra details that they have you do, like large hand basted stitch lines down the front of the pants to create your crease so that you know exactly where to press your pants. That is something that I did not do and did not follow, partly because I knew that I was changing the direction of my pleats, and therefore I wasn't sure exactly that my pressed line on the trousers would actually be in the spot that they are telling you to put them in the instructions. Plus, I just have never done that before, and I did not have the time or the energy, and I did not feel well, so I did not take the extra professionally tailoring steps for these trousers as I could have. But I really appreciate that those steps are in there in order to make a really beautiful, ready to wear looking pair of trousers. This was my first Viki Sews pattern that I sewed. I do own others, I just have not sewn them up yet. And I would say that her instructions are really detailed, and I was able to follow along really well. There was no step that really confused me. The picture illustrations for this pattern are really nice and large, and this is kind of what they look like. I actually printed the color version, even though I don't normally do that, but because it was trousers, I wanted to be able to see exactly what it looked like in the instructions rather than relying on poorly printed black and white images. So I was impressed with all the details and all the pictures for each of the steps. It definitely helped me as I went along with sewing the trousers. And all in all, I do like this pattern, and I think it could be a really staple pattern in my collection that I could sew over and over again, because even though these are not the perfect size, I do find them to be attractive pants, and they are very comfortable to wear, and I do love the oversized nature of them. Like, the legs on these pants are very wide, and I just find that to be extremely comfortable and nice. So I will sew this pattern up in the future, and I do recommend it to you as well. I would say though that you might want to do a test garment with this one because of how oversized it was on me when I followed the size chart. One thing that I failed to mention is that on the instructions is where it says the rating for this pattern, and this pattern is rated as intermediate, and I definitely agree with that rating. It also mentions that the size range is a 34 to a 52 or a 2 to a size 20. So the size 2 range is a 23 and 5/8 waist, a 33 and 7/8 hip, and then a size 20 is a 37 and 3/4 inch waist and a 48 hip. So that's a pretty good size range. And again, I definitely recommend this one, and I plan to sew both of these patterns up again in the future. I'm so sorry that I don't have really nice styled pictures to insert in this video. If the weather had been better, I absolutely would have taken pictures to insert in this video, but hopefully you seeing me walk around in these two garments will give you a very good idea of how they look and move and fit on the body. And hopefully in the future I can dress myself up, do my makeup and hair, and have some really awesome pictures to share with you in a future video or on Instagram. But anyway, those were my two garments that I made and that I wore on Thanksgiving. I hope you enjoyed this pattern review. Please make sure you head over to Talisha's channel so that you can check out her review for her patterns that she selected. Please give us a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe to our channels. I hope you have a fantastic day and a wonderful week. Talk to you soon.